show you how to create your own latex prosthetics or scars, cuts, bruises, gunshot wounds. Even latex mask can be made with this technique. So if you see here, this is a cheap version of a scar I got at one of the Halloween stores, probably for $4 or $5, but it's so thick that it's hard to attach this and make that blend in so you can't see it. This one's not as bad as some of them, but this one still is really thick. The fake nose, again, same kind of problem. When you put it on, it's not going to disappear as well as it should. So, what you're going to need is a piece of wax paper. So you can use parchment if you'd rather. Doesn't matter, either one will work fine. You're going to need some liquid latex. Doesn't matter what brand it is, just get some liquid latex. Now I would suggest you get products from a makeup manufacturer, a professional theater makeup manufacturer, as opposed to, say, buying it at one of the stores during Halloween, because they're not going to be necessarily the same quality. Other things you'll need some powder. Translucent powder is good. You can use baby powder for this project. You might need a brush, although if you get the right kind of liquid latex bottle, it'll have a brush. You might need some cotton swabs, some cotton, tissue paper, and then any of a number of other things will work for you for adding to it. Now you also will probably, once you've created these and got them ready to be applied, you're going to need some kind of adhesive. So you can either use spirit gum like this, or you can use what I use, which is called Pro Nose adhesive, which comes in a latex version and a non-latex version. This I prefer better than this, because this, although it is great as an adhesive, is very difficult to get it off correctly. Now, yes, you can buy the spirit gum remover, but that doesn't remove it off your skin as easy as it would imply that it does. Whereas with this will rub right off just like the latex itself will. So this is what I recommend. Now, you may also use a blow dryer to dry it and make it go faster. But the first thing you do is take your liquid latex and your wax paper and literally just brush on your latex to create a thin layer. Make sure you fill in all the sections so that it is a complete layer and not got holes in it. Now some people have the tendency to want to pour it out and make that work better. If you can do it, fine, but you may be wasting some of your liquid latex that way. Now if you were going to make prosthetics such as a fake nose like this, you're probably going to be better off using foam latex, which is a whole nother process. If I get a chance, I'll show that at some other time. But I would suggest for things that are flat, like a gunshot wound or a scar or a cut, this works the best. It's fastest. It's the fastest, let's put it that way. So this is where you would use your hairdryer if you had one. Make it dry a lot faster. Now, while we're waiting for this to dry somewhat, I'll go ahead and explain what you're going to do. The whole idea of this is that you're creating a thin layer of latex that would adhere to the skin using one of your glues or adhesives. Okay. What you want to do is get a thin enough layer so that on the edges it's real thin, so that the edges blend in to the rest of the skin real easy. Okay. Then what you're going to do inside this is shape up whatever it is you need. So let's say this was going to be our gunshot wound. Then I would use cotton or tissue or some other substance, it doesn't matter what it is. And I literally build up. And you can do this while it's still wet, it won't matter for this part of it. But I literally build the shape of the gunshot wound. Because you want that little bit of a ridge, but not a real deep ridge, but you want something of a ridge. So that when you get this on there, it has some depth to it, not just flat. So with this where I want it, if this is exactly the way I want it, which we'll probably say it is, once this is dry, it'll be easier to do, but I'm going to go ahead and do it on this one. What you want to do now is take your liquid latex, put it over the top of the cotton or the tissue or whatever substance you use, so that you're making that a coating of latex to seal it off to the other latex. So your top layer needs to seal down to the bottom layer. And the reason you want it sealed off is so that you can make sure it's not going to come undone on you, and that it'll actually work the way you want it to work. Now that I've got this the way I want it, now once this top layer is dry, now I can start doing things like coloring the inside to make it look like there's a hole in there. So I can use my regular stage makeup kit colors to make up whatever coloring I need to do inside the wound. Okay. You can also use this, let's say you wanted to create a bleeding wound, a cut. So you lay out a layer of liquid latex the way you want it to look. Make your bottom layer bigger than what your top layer needs to be. So in other words, much bigger than your cut will be. Again, you can cut out the excess if you need to after it's done. Now, once this is dry, if I want this to be a bleeding wound, I would take my fake blood, stage blood, and I'll literally put some here in the middle. Now, I found that when you're working with fake blood in a wound like this, you're going to want to, instead of letting this dry, because the fake blood is not going to dry as well as the other, what you're going to want to do is create a second layer of liquid latex that'll cover the top layer, at least big enough to cover the blood. Let that dry, and then you're going to peel that off and apply it on top of this, and then seal it around with more latex. And that's what you would use for that. Then you can literally make it so that it looks like you're cutting it and there'll be blood in there. And you can use a lot of blood, but if you use too much blood, then it's just going to ooze all over the place before you even get anything sealed off. So don't go overboard with the blood. You can do that after the fact. Now, once these things are dry, You're going to take your powder, pour a little bit on the paper, put a little bit around it, especially around the edges. Now these aren't completely dry, but I'll give you an idea of what you're doing with it, because the bottom layer is. So what you're going to do is just literally peel up one edge and keep powder under that edge as you peel it, so that when you go up with it, you can see that it's there. Now what it's going to want to do is it's going to want to fold on itself, and the latex will stick to itself. So if you keep the powder, again, I put some over the top edge, and then as I roll up the edge here at the bottom, I keep putting a little bit of powder underneath my finger so that I'm rolling powder underneath it. So now that I've got that, I've got a nice thin edge that I can use, so that when I apply this, it's actually going to look like what it should be. And it'll blend a lot easier into the skin than the thicker fake ones will. Now here's the advantage to doing a project like this. Let's say you need 20 bullet wounds for some film project you're doing. You can make all 20 bullet wounds to the sizes you need, have them preset ready, but you're doing 20 bullet wounds but over multiple days, so you may have to see those same bullet wounds more than once, or you may have to refilm. You can make 60, 80, 100 of these bullet wounds all on wax paper, get another piece of wax paper to cut over the top of it to store them in a nice dry place, and then you can easily pull these out. These things will last anywhere from a couple of months to a year before they start disintegrating. So the sooner you use them, the better. If you know you're going to need them, go ahead and start making them, but I wouldn't make them more than a couple of months out, because one, you may change your project, and two, you want to make sure you use them and don't have them setting too awful long. Okay, so that's this project. If you want to see a final version of this, just say so down in the comments, and then I'll see if I can create some and then show you how they're applied. Although they apply just like any other application. All right, that's it for today's lesson.